Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, episode number 160. In this episode, you're going to hear from Shannon Klenk, and she is a chronic illness warrior and isn't about to let her diagnosis define her life. Shannon is passionate about helping women be kind to themselves and teach you how to stop beating yourself up, how to get into action, and to take better care of yourself. So I'm going to tell you this episode is so great. Even if you don't have a chronic illness, then make sure you still give this a listen because there's so many great self-care tips that I know you're going to love it. Before we get to the episode, I want to let you know what's coming up with O2B, and that is, it's not about the numbers masterclass. It is going to be so epic. If you have ever felt trapped with your weight or felt trapped when it comes to your finances, you feel kind of like a ping pong where you're going back and forth. You'll out of debt, in debt, out of debt, in debt. Or if you're do the yo-yo dieting thing, where you're underweight, overweight. I don't know if you guys have done either of those things, but I certainly have. So I feel your pain on that. And really, it's not about the numbers. It's all about self-love and self-care. And instead of focusing on that number that you see on the scale or the number on the size of your jeans or how much money you have in your bank account, it's focusing on you. It's focusing on the primary issues in your life. And once you take care of those, then a lot of the other ones will miraculously go away. Or, I'm not against budgets, I'm not against diets, but in order to get there, you have to love yourself right now. And if you don't, that's when we do this downward slide back. So I would love for you to join me. Information will be out about that soon. And with that, let's get to the episode. Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I'm so glad you're here. Today's guest is Shannon Klenk. Shannon, thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you on the show.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
So before we go any further, I've got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
Well, to be honest, I would say I'm a healthy dose of both. So there's part of me that really is just an ordinary, everyday mom making life happen with all of the challenges that we face day to day. And I think in our culture, there's sort of a pressure to be something extraordinary. Like you have to have a certain style or a particular hobby or right. And ordinary really is okay. It really is. And I am a healthy dose of badass because I am a pretty ordinary person who has walked through some very extraordinary things and come out the other side still deeply, well, I wouldn't even say still, I would say because of those extraordinary things, I've come out the other side deeply content, happy with my life, a joyful, positive, contributing person, even more so than before those things happened to me. So yes, I am definitely a healthy dose of badass.
Have you always felt like you were a badass or had that feeling like, oh yeah, I'm a badass? Or has it come along with time?
I hate to be so wishy-washy, but again, I'll say a little bit of both. So part of my journey and part of my story, which is not necessarily the focal point of my business, Finally Effing Happy, but I am an adult survivor of childhood trauma. And so that journey as a child was very challenging. I didn't always feel like a badass. I was really taught consciously or unconsciously that I was a pretty unlovable and worthless person and really not valued. And I hope my parents aren't listening because they're still alive and they really did do the best they could with the tools that they had. But the truth is that's what I walked away with. Now, even in the midst of that, I knew. I mean, I refer to my soul like a lioness roaring in a cage saying, come on, Shan, come on. There's more. There's brighter. There's more peaceful. There's joyful. There's safety. Come on. There's more. There's more. So although I have very much battled with self-esteem and self-worth and self-respect, there has always been this voice somewhere deep inside me that has pushed me on to tell me that there is self-esteem to be had, and you are a valuable person, and you are worth the space that you take up on this planet. And so it's been a little bit of both.
I love it. So good. First, I love the name of Finally Effing Happy.
Me too, because I am finally effing happy.
Yes, but also just like the whole self-worth journey that most humans have to go through, and it does take some work and some energy. It doesn't always just come naturally.
It does. And I think the thing that has been most important for me, though there are so many things that I could speak to in regards to self-worth and self-respect and self-care, but probably the most important thing is that I can't think my way into feeling better about myself. Now, mindset is super important, but for me, mindset has to be matched with action. So I was told early on that if I wanted self-esteem, I needed to take esteemable actions. If I wanted self-respect, I needed to take respectful actions. And so some of those actions were outward self-care. Was I making sure to shower on a regular basis? Was I wearing clean clothes? Was I taking time to not necessarily put all my makeup on and look perfect every time, but did I take the actions toward that self-respect and self-esteem? Same with exercise or food choices that I made. So there were some outward actions that were as important as the mindset work that I do and did to turn that around. And I say do and did, I still do them. As I mentioned to you earlier when we were offline, I am in a big transition in my life right now. And it's the first time in 27 years I haven't had kids at home. And those old voices, I mean, I have heard loud and clear over the last 3 weeks, Shannon, what have you done with your life? Right. And I'm like, oh, wow, where's that voice coming from? I haven't had to have a conversation with her in quite some time. And so, although these are things that I say I did, at times in my life, they are still things that I do to both the outward self-care, and I teach and also practice this practice called self-empathy. And none of us really go, oh, I need more self-empathy. People are like, what is that? Right. And the easiest way that I can describe this process that I teach and support women through is how to befriend that inner critic, right? We hear people say time and time again, I am my biggest critic. Okay, well, let's not shut her up. We don't need to shut her up. We actually need to befriend her. She's trying to tell us something. Let's listen. Let's hear what she has to say. And I have found in this journey of learning to listen to that part of me, a deep self-compassion, a deep self-gentleness. You and I both come from this, just get it done, muster through, push on through, right?
Yeah.
And can there be a world where I can push on through and still be super gentle with myself? Like, that was rocket science to me.
Yes. Yes. No, I'm with you. And then also still just take space for myself. Like sometimes you can push through, but sometimes you can take space for yourself, and get yourself healthy or do what you need for you.
Absolutely. I am the self-care queen. I'm not perfect at self-care. I have a self-care accountability crew. And that is so important because we all sort of know what we quote unquote should do to make space for ourselves or take care of ourselves. But just because we know what we should do doesn't mean that we do it, right? It's about converting that knowledge into action. Because if I'm not in the action, then all that knowledge doesn't really matter. It's just knowledge.
Yes. So good. I want to dive into so much more. But before we do, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Sure. So I will tell you. All right. So where to begin? The Reader's Digest version, the short version. So I grew up in Los Angeles. I sort of grew up between Los Angeles and Seattle. I've lived a lot of places around the world, everywhere from Switzerland to London to New Zealand to Alberta, Canada, to Seattle. So I've lived a lot of places, and that has informed a lot of who I am because I have a deep respect for the idea that I don't know what your experience is. I can't even begin to assume what your experience is. And I have discovered in this journey around the world that most of us, whatever our background is, we really deeply want to be heard. And so making space for that, for myself and for others, has been so important in this journey. And part of my journey and what led me to finally effing happy is that I was sick all of my life, just kind of chronic illness here and tons of ear infections and stomach infections. And, as women, we are led to believe that it's all somehow our fault. I wasn't eating right or sleeping right. If I had one more person tell me that I didn't handle stress well, I was going to stress all over them, right? I mean, I was going to lose it. And so it wasn't until I was about 40, through a whole fluke of circumstances, that I finally got properly diagnosed with a primary immunodeficiency, which means there are significant chunks of my immune system that, quite frankly, they just don't exist. It's not like they're broken, they just don't exist. And so once I started getting proper treatment for my primary immunodeficiency, the world, it was like that moment in Wizard of Oz when everything goes to Technicolor. It was like the world was all of a sudden Technicolor. I didn't have to take a nap every afternoon. I wasn't chronically exhausted. I wasn't always sick. Now, it took a long time for that shift to happen, but the biggest shift in that was the part of me, and I love my doctor because I spent a lot of my life, and there's a lot of big sector of our culture that really led me to believe it was in my head, and that I'm the crazy one, and that this is all just made up in my head. And I can't tell you how many times I've said to my doctor, will you just remind me this is real? And she was like, yes, I will remind you that this is real. We have data. We have an entire department at Yale. There's an entire department at the National Institute of Health. Like, this is a real thing. And that was the shift for me, where I started to realize, well, if I've believed these things about myself all of my life that, quite frankly, are just not true, what else have I been believing about me and the world that just isn't true? And it was this turning point where all of the mindset work and training and mindfulness that I had done, I could actually reap the benefit from. And prior to that, I thought, oh, there's some blockage, there's something wrong with me. No, actually, I just needed to take care of a very legitimate physical condition. And so part of that journey, the other piece I want to throw in there about my story is that throughout all that time, I was raising my now 26-year-old as a single mom. And so the journey of being a single mom, working full time, raising your son, doing all the volunteer stuff that we do, and managing your own illness all the time in a culture that really values healing yourself. And if you're not healing yourself, then something's wrong with you. It was exhausting. It was emotionally exhausting, spiritually exhausting, certainly physically exhausting. And so turning that corner by having the physical condition diagnosed properly so it could be treated, which meant the other mindset work that I did I could reap the benefits of it finally. And then starting to share this with other people and other women. Part of that journey for me has been years ago, I did work with a gentleman by the name of Marshall Rosenberg, and he wrote a book called Nonviolent Communication. He was a child of the 60s, and the nonviolent movement was the thing of the day. And today we'd probably call it compassionate communication. And it's really a form of heart-to-heart communication. And within his work is an entire body of work around self-empathy, around heart-to-heart communication with yourself, and how to really hear and hold your deepest needs, not just your feelings, but your needs. And by connecting to those needs, I can very authentically change my thoughts, right? We hear a lot about affirmations, a lot about my thoughts fuel my feelings. But if I'm not authentically changing those words, it doesn't stick. And so this process of self-empathy that has really allowed that transformation to stick, as I would say. And so that I have what I would say befriend my inner critic. My self-talk is so different today than it was 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. And because of this continually connected self-talk and self-care, surprise, surprise, because my self-talk is more kind, gentle, empowering, my self-care is more consistent. I make better choices, and then I feel better. And oh my gosh, when I feel better, my self-talk is gentler and kinder and more empowered. And then I'm on this upward spiral as opposed to the downward spiral that used to like suck me in like a vortex. So all that to say, last February, in the middle of coronavirus, I launched Finally Effing Happy, which is a podcasting community for kick-ass women who live with chronic illness, women who have a chronic condition, but are just not willing to let that be the thing that defines their life. And part of it came from, because of my condition, when you go to the medical community, and not so much the medical community, but the diagnostic community, like every diagnosis has its own foundation, 501c3, whether it's the American Heart Association or Juvenile Diabetes Association. And those are all wonderful. And you should go get information there if you have a condition. However, they can be very overwhelming, and at the worst, depressing, because it's just a lot.
Yeah.
But when you go to the personal development community, whether it's for mindset, mindfulness, or whether it's, here comes my 100-pound dog. This is what we're going to call the Clementine moment of this podcast. She's a bull mastiff. She's very happy.
What's her name?
Clementine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the Clementine moment.
Nice.
Sorry about that. My apologies. Okay, so I totally got distracted.
Oh, that's fine. So I wanted to go back a little bit for the self-talk.
Yeah.
I think often we struggle with self-talk, and people think that it should just happen overnight, or we should just be nice to ourselves overnight, or that not everybody has negative self-talk, but that's not necessarily true. Like, I think it's a journey. But can you talk to the person who has maybe negative self-talk, how they recognize it and what they can do?
Sure. So I have a really big opinion about this, and because I'm a science of happiness junkie. So I'm one of those people where I love the science, I love the data, and I'm a little woo-woo. Like, I'm a little bit of both. And so as a result of that, I am this Science of Happiness junkie. So I read a lot of stuff in regards to positive psychology and science of happiness. And a lot of times I will read, just say positive things about yourself or think positive thoughts. But then they fail to tell you how. Like, how do I do that? I have 20 years or 30 years or 50 years beating myself up. Right. And what can beating myself up look like? It can look like everything from when you drop an egg on the kitchen floor. God damn it, Shannon, I can't believe you did that. Right. It can look like that.
Yeah.
It can look like, when you, I don't know, hit a car, but I've done this where I've just taken the rear view mirror off my car by accident. And it's like, if you would just pay attention, like, oh my gosh, like life isn't really busy. And so that place where, would I say that to my friend that way? Like I have said things to myself I would never, ever, ever say to another human being, ever. That's an indicator. I might want to change that. Now, not everybody wants to change it. There are some people who are really content living their lives like that. Hey, awesome. For me, oftentimes those thoughts, those comments, even the most recent comment of, what have you done with your life? Oh my gosh, I've raised 4 kids. I've traveled across the world. I got a master's degree. I've helped numbers of women. I've started a business. I've done lots of things.
Right.
But still, right? For me, those voices can start the downward spiral. And so that's a good indicator of, is this self-talk that I don't want anymore? That's not useful. It's not serving a useful purpose for me other than to spiral me downward. And there are lots of methodologies out there to try and change that. And this is why I personally dove into and coach women on self-empathy, how to befriend that voice, because she was trying to tell me something. She was trying to keep me safe. She was trying to motivate me in a completely negative way. And so we have found more positive ways to motivate myself. But there were things that she was trying to tell me. If I could take the time and listen to her, feel those feelings, which is where a lot of us stop because either the feelings are totally overwhelming and they are sucking us into the vortex of darkness, or those feelings we just keep putting up blinders, like, I'm just not gonna, no, I'm not gonna, I don't wanna. But if we go underneath that feeling and we look at what's the need, what's the need that negative self-talk is trying to fulfill? It's trying to fulfill something. It's trying to motivate me. It's trying to keep me safe. It's trying to get things done so that I might be able to have more energy later in the day. It is trying to do something. And when I can connect to that need, because there's no judgment in the need, that is a judgment-free zone. We all have them. From that judgment-free zone, I can then reframe what some might call an affirmation, some might call it a turnaround, but I can reframe that original thought in a way that's really authentic to me. And then once I use that on a regular basis as part of what I call, I'm going to make it a piece of spiritual business that has nothing to do with religion or God or anything like that. Just I'm going to make that a piece of spiritual business. Then that transition can happen very quickly because it's authentic. It's really about me. It's not, the example I give a lot is that if I'm feeling stupid and I just stand in the mirror and say, you're smart, you're smart, you're smart, it's better than nothing, but it doesn't necessarily always land or stick.
So it's more about listening to the voice then and paying attention to the need, like what it's wanting.
Yeah. Yeah. What let's say that voice got what it wanted. What's it going to get? What's that going to do for you? And follow that squirrel trail, if you will, that rabbit hole of what would you get if that need got met?
So earlier, kind of in relation to self-talk, you were talking about thoughts that would pop up maybe from your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that a lot of people really realize that what they think today could still be related to what they thought as a child.
Sure.
Can you talk about how you recognize that?
So let's see how I recognize that. So when a phrase that was given to me many years ago is that if I'm hysterical, it's probably historical. And so if someone has said to me, hi, how are you doing today? And I am now a raving lunatic because I heard, you're late, right? Like sometimes someone says something, and in our house, and this is a part of the communication that I coach on, we just go message sent was not message received. So like sometimes the message sent is just not the message received.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say I hear something and I am now totally off the charts, being driven by, reactive by my emotions. But I know what happened in and of itself isn't a very big deal. That disproportion to my reaction to what happened, that's an indicator for me that it's probably historical. It probably has some roots beyond this moment. So an example for me is when people cut me off when I'm talking. And it's something that I really work on not doing to other people too. It's something that was done to me a lot. It is a way of communicating to me. What you have to say doesn't matter. I know more than you always. Now, I'm not saying I'm saying that's what I internalized as a kid. And so today, as a 51-year-old grown woman, when I am making a phone call to a school, advocating for my son, talking to a medical insurance company, so on and so forth, and someone cuts me off, and I would say particularly like a customer service person via phone, if I'm not in a pretty grounded space, my emotions can trigger and I am in the ether. Now, I've gotten to a point where I don't scream at the person on the other end of the phone. So that's progress. Woo woo. But I also no longer interpret it as I'm not worthy of being heard. But that's taken years to turn that corner to go, okay, this is just a person following their script, their customer service script. They're actually trying to provide me customer service, and they keep cutting me off. And maybe it's just the phone connection, and it's really not personal, but my emotions are driving the show. That's when I generally can recognize and know that it's historical and not in this moment. Because when I can get into the moment, it's usually not that big of a deal.
Right. So that could be a benefit of it, of recognizing your thoughts and patterns, is maybe it's not a big deal. Like instead of getting worked up and like going down that spiral, you're like, oh, I recognize this. It's not a big deal. Are there any other benefits to recognizing your thoughts and to positive self-talk?
Absolutely. I think that the upward spiral that starts with your thoughts, right? And so I can't always control my first thought, but I absolutely have influence on my second thought. And so that place of some of my first thoughts really are, those in the world of neuroplasticity would tell me that this isn't true, but they really are hardwired. At least at 51, I still have some of those first thoughts that can be very negative. But the second thought, I do have influence over. And I have an entire toolbox of tools that help me get to a second thought that is empowering, that is nurturing, that is supportive to myself, right? Because I want that second thought to be positive and useful. And so I use my self-empathy practice. I do emotional freedom technique or tapping, which is something that I've done for 20 years, even though it's sort of recently come into vogue. I have mindfulness practices. I am a big fan of Louise Hay's work, certainly Marshall Rosenberg's work. And so there are specific practices that I do to really influence that second thought. And then usually from that second thought, it can turn into something positive from there.
So for the audience members that don't know, will you explain what emotional freedom technique is?
Sure. Emotional freedom technique or tapping is a form of acupressure that you do to yourself. It's something that I was originally attracted to it because I was really going through some trauma work at the time. But I was also a single parent who was working full time, living penny to penny, paycheck to paycheck. And this was something I could learn how to do to myself for free, anywhere, anytime, and help move energy, if you will. So it's tapping acupressure points on your own body while holding in intention a particular issue that you might be working on, or a particular frustrating situation or relationship, or even memory, to help that pass on through. So you tap on the side of your hand and on the top of your head and certain points around your eyes, under your nose, under your chin, near your collarbone, and under your arm. There's a lot more to it than that. I'm actually in the process of becoming a certified EFT practitioner, because it is a methodology that has helped me and it has helped so many women. And I am really excited that some of these, that's why I say I am super ordinary mainstream and I'm part woo-woo. I have a little bit of all of it. And I just love that some of these more quote unquote woo-woo things are becoming certified and are becoming more mainstream, because for those people that they connect with, they're really powerful techniques.
Yes. And I think that they're becoming more mainstream, but there's still a ton of people who don't know anything about it. But it's like, man, at least for me, like tapping, breath work, that kind of stuff, I've only learned about it really, in the past year. And it can be life-changing. Absolutely
life-changing. And I would attribute tapping, along with the self-empathy work that I do, as being the core techniques that I have used to, I don't even want to say the word heal, because we place an emphasis in our culture around healing. Like somehow there's someplace better that I need to get to. No, wherever you are right now is really okay. Wherever you are right now, it's really okay. And especially if you're an individual who lives with any kind of chronic condition, like wherever you are right now is okay. And so we place such value on healing that sometimes I hesitate to even use that word, but I would attribute EFT and self-empathy as the two core techniques that I used personally to transition childhood trauma, adult trauma, relationship trauma. As I mentioned earlier, I've been married several times. My relationship journey is directly proportional to my trauma journey. And so transitioning those old stories and those limiting beliefs that kept me from being deeply contented. And deeply contented is another way of saying happy. And hence my business is Finally Effing Happy, because I am finally effing happy. And I focus my work on working with women who live with chronic illness, but this idea that there's a lot of science behind happiness now. And it's there's a lot of data to show that if you engage in these certain activities repeatedly, you can have access to this elusive thing we call happiness, regardless of what's going on around you. It doesn't mean you're always going to be happy, but it means you're going to have access to that even when life is a total, around you. I won't swear on your podcast, though clearly by the name of my company, I love a good swear word. Just love it.
Hey, mine's badass. So we're both in it together.
There you go. So we're in it. Right. Yeah.
So how do we come to a place where we can be happy right now?
So how you can be in a place where you can be happy right now, this sounds so cheesy, but it starts by getting in the right now. And when I say starts by getting in the right now, I mean, seriously, wherever you are listening to this, just stop, take a look around you. So for example, for you and me, today is Thursday. It's Thursday, October 8th. It's 2021. I'm sitting in my office. There's the umbrella outside and there are these windows. Like, get into the right now. It starts by being in right now. And then the second piece is this place around really deep acceptance of what is. This idea that I'm going to shut up that voice, or I'm going to shove away that memory. Like, no, what is right now? Let's put it all out on the table, right? And then just give some loving kindness to it as the starting place. And then from there, we can deal with any of the transformation and other work that we might need to do. But really getting into this moment with really deep acceptance of whatever is. And a lot of times when we go, what is in the moment, there's stuff we don't like. And so the stuff we don't like, we're like, oh, I'm just going to shove it away, or I'm going to push it away, or I'm going to eat it away, or I'm going to whatever it away, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to deep acceptance for even those things. So I say that happiness is not sort of Pollyanna, happy birthday, happy all the time. Happiness is a place where all emotions are welcome. All of them are welcome. Anger is welcome. Sadness is welcome. Remorse is welcome. Frustration is welcome. Playfulness is welcome. Childishness is welcome. Giddiness is like all of those emotions are welcome.
So important. And I think that the women that listen to this podcast need to hear that too, because as women, we're often like raised not to be angry, or not to show we're angry, or to be a good girl, so I think it's important to realize, like, no, you're an adult, you can make decisions for yourself, but also like you can feel your emotions even if it is anger.
Absolutely. Anger is so important to know how to identify, how to express it, how not to like vomit it over other people, but still honor it. When I'm angry, my anger is trying to tell me something, right? It could be basic fight or flight stuff. Sure. It could also be sadness from childhood stuff. It could be worry, genuine worry. And if I look underneath worry, a lot of times there's love. When I look underneath worry, it's like, it's because I really love them. My 26-year-old who lives cross country called me 3 days ago. He had a fever and a headache and a sore throat and body aches. And he had just gone for a COVID test, and he's 3,500 miles away from me. I'm worried. What's underneath that worry? Ooh, I'm going to start crying. It's love.
Yeah.
It's love. Right. And so when I can connect to that space and see what's underneath that anger, then it takes the bite out of it. So I don't have to vomit it over other people, because vomiting our anger over other people actually doesn't ultimately reach our end objectives or goals for change.
Yeah. And then maybe it helps us understand ourselves a little bit more, or like, oh, well, if love is what's underneath it, that makes sense. I love my kid, so.
Absolutely. That's where the self-compassion comes in. right? That's where oh, Shan, of course you're worried. This is your baby.
Yeah.
It's your baby, and he's healthy and he's young and he's vaccinated and he's good, and horrible things happen with COVID.
Yeah.
And so of course you're worried. And I can hold myself very gently, like I would a girlfriend. If a girlfriend came to me and said, my 26-year-old across the country is sick, blah, 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 I wouldn't be like, it's no big deal. Shut up, get over it.
Yeah, right.
I'd be like, oh my God, that sounds really scary. I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do to be helpful? Can I talk to myself that way? That's a practice. That's a practice.
Yes. You're not crazy for talking to yourself. Oh, to be yours. It's like, a lot of people that I've interviewed on the show have talked about that. Like they talk to themselves, they encourage themselves like they would their younger, like their childhood self. And that really can be impactful.
Well, if you want to talk crazy, I talk to my white blood cells and my platelets. So
there you go.
Part of my condition is I get an IgG infusion every 2 weeks. And so IgG is an antibody. A lot of people have heard about antibodies during our season of coronavirus. And so I get IgG infusions every 2 weeks. And so I literally talk to my immune system and welcome all these new IgGs to my system. And thank you to any of your listeners who donate blood or donate platelets. I am one of those people that you save my life and make my life healthier and better every day. So thank you. But yes, I talk to my white blood cells and my platelets, not just to myself, but yeah.
So chronic illness can be super hard, super discouraging, or you might feel like you're trudging through it by yourself. What is one thing that somebody with chronic illness can do if they want to start feeling better in some way?
Wow, to pick one, that's hard. I'll like give you 100. No, I'll give you one. I think finding connection and community. One of the number one things about chronic illness is you really begin to believe that your case is different. And your case, medically speaking, probably is. Every person, whether you have asthma, whether you have Crohn's disease, whether you have fibromyalgia, whether you have HIV, the way it presents is different and unique to you. And so there is a uniqueness in there, but that can lead us to feeling very alone and very isolated. And that's part of why I started Finally Effing Happy, which does remind me that's where I was when Clementine interrupted us. So back to our previous
program
around Clementine. Okay, so when you go to that diagnostic community, it can be really heavy and really overwhelming. But when you go to the personal development community, whether it's mindset and mindfulness or manifesting or the law of attraction or whatever it is, or health and wellness, food, exercise, etc., oftentimes those who live with a chronic condition feel like that chronic condition isn't really seen or heard. And people always say, well, make adjustments for your own personal situation, but it doesn't really feel held. And so Finally Effing Happy is this place where we can fully acknowledge the unique challenges to living with a chronic condition. And a lot of people really hesitate taking on that label, but it can be anything from asthma to primary immunodeficiency. We're welcoming a whole new class of COVID-19 long haulers to our community, right? But this place where we can acknowledge and honor the genuine challenges of living with a chronic condition and live in a place of hope and happiness and joy and goodness. And both of those things can coexist. We don't have to be sort of dour depressed. We don't have to be, I'm just going to march through it, right? There's a place where someplace in the middle. And I often say, come play in the happiness sandbox. It really is here.
So good. And I think it's just a different way of looking at it that not a lot of people are talking about. So I appreciate that you're bringing up this conversation and that you're sharing it with us. So thank you for that.
Thanks for having me to share it, because I am super passionate about helping women. I mean, all women, but helping women who live with chronic conditions be kind to themselves, because we are so hard on ourselves.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
So let's end with a tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want.
So the tip that I would give you is radical self-care. So I do this thing called the 3 E's to sustainable self-care. I won't go through all of them, but the first E is your essentials. And take time to really think through what are your personal self-care essentials. And they probably include things like water and food choices and a certain amount of sleep, and whether you're an orderly, like you want your place tidy or not tidy, like what are your essentials? Because we all think we kind of know what our self-care essentials are. We sort of know them in our head, but when we put them down on paper and have clarity about what those self-care essentials are, they're much easier for us to actually implement, get into action about in our life. And I promise you with every fiber of my being, both from my personal experience and my professional experience, when your self-care foundation, your essentials are solid, they don't have to be perfect, but solid, everything, absolutely everything is possible from that place.
So powerful, so good. Thank you so much. How can we connect with you?
You can find me just about anywhere at Finally Effing Happy. And in case you don't know how to spell effing, it's EFFING. So my website, easiest place to get all the info is at finallyeffinghappy.com. I have a private Facebook group, finallyeffinghappy.com. And I'm on Instagram at finallyeffinghappy.com. And I have a podcast, finallyeffinghappy.com, so that you too can finally effing be happy.
I love it. So good. Shannon, thank you so much for sharing your story. You've been a total badass.
Thanks so much for having me. Be well.
And with that, we'll end our show. To all the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass, and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.